Each winter, thousands of people in cities like Minneapolis and Chicago try to survive the night inside cars where metal and glass trap the cold, not the warmth. A parked vehicle, despite its shelter, quickly becomes as cold as the street outside, and within an hour, your own body heat is the only thing keeping you alive. The risk is not just discomfort. When temperatures fall below zero, hypothermia can set in before dawn, and frostbite can destroy nerves in less than 30 minutes. No engine, no hack, no shortcut changes the physics. What does it actually take to stay alive inside a freezing car? And why is it more complicated than anyone expects? Minneapolis faces winter nights where the temperature drops below zero more than 20 times each year. In Chicago, cold snaps send the mercury plunging for weeks at a time. Denver, too, sees stretches of sub-zero weather that test the limits of anyone forced to sleep outside. On these nights, shelters fill quickly. In 2024, Chicago reported more than 1,900 people on the winter waitlist for emergency beds. Denver's latest count found over 2,100 people unsheltered, many of them sleeping in cars. In Minneapolis, the number of people turned away from full shelters runs into the hundreds when the coldest nights hit. A car offers a roof and doors, but little else. Metal and glass do not hold warmth. Once the engine is off, the inside of a parked vehicle cools rapidly, often matching the air outside before midnight. The body becomes the only heat source, giving off about 70 to 100 watts at rest, less than a standard light bulb. Survival depends on how much of that heat can be kept close and how little is lost to the cold. One man in Minneapolis describes it simply: you curl up in the back seat, every layer you own on your body, and you wait for the sun. You can't sleep. You listen to the wind. You count the hours. You hope the car blocks enough of it. The margin for error is thin. When shelter beds run out, a car is the last barrier between a person and the full force of winter. The next problem is not just the cold outside, but the way a vehicle's design speeds the loss of every bit of warmth inside. Inside a parked car on a winter night, heat escapes in every direction. Metal doors and frames pull warmth away through conduction, moving body heat straight out to the freezing air. Glass windows, with almost no insulation, allow heat to radiate out and cold to seep in. Even when the wind is still, the air inside a car cools quickly, and drafts through vents or small gaps speed up the loss. Breath and sweat add moisture, which turns to frost on the windows and draws out more heat through evaporation. In these conditions, the body's own heat, about 70 to 100 watts at rest, has to fight a losing battle against the cold. A street medicine clinician in Chicago describes the danger. We see people with core temperatures dropping below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hypothermia. Below that, shivering stops, thinking gets cloudy, and people can't protect themselves. At 0 degrees Fahrenheit, frostbite can set in within 30 minutes, especially on hands and feet pressed against cold metal or glass. Some try to keep the engine running for warmth, but this brings its own risk. Snow or ice can block the exhaust, causing carbon monoxide, a colorless, odorless gas, to fill the cabin. Emergency rooms in Chicago and Denver see more carbon monoxide cases in winter, often from people sleeping in idling cars. The cost is also steep. A typical car burns through a quarter gallon of gas every hour while idling. Over an 8-hour night, that's up to $12, money most can't spare. Even with the engine on, the temperature inside rarely rises more than a few degrees, while the risk of poisoning or running out of fuel grows with every hour. Survival in a car during winter is not about comfort. It's about slowing the loss of heat, avoiding deadly mistakes, and knowing that the thin walls of a vehicle offer little protection against the cold outside. The human body is a small but steady furnace. At rest, It gives off about 70 to 100 watts of heat, barely more than a single old-fashioned light bulb. This is all the warmth a person has to work with inside a car on a freezing night. There are no backup sources, no thick walls, no central heating, no steady supply of fuel. Every survival tactic, every layer of clothing or scrap of cardboard is about protecting that limited heat from slipping away. The science is simple but unforgiving. Heat always moves from warm to cold. The body's energy radiates out, pulled away by cold metal, sucked out by drafts, lost through glass. Once the engine is off, nothing replaces what is lost. The car becomes a cold box, and the body's output, those 70 to 100 watts, must do all the work of keeping vital organs above the line where hypothermia begins. There is no way to generate more heat without food, movement, or risk. The only real choice is to slow the loss. This means treating every bit of warmth as precious. Survival depends on conservation, not creation. The goal is to trap what little heat the body can make, hold it close, and keep the cold from stealing it away faster than it can be replaced. Every practical step that follows, every blanket, every barrier, every layer, is rooted in this principle. The body is the only heater. The challenge is to make it enough. Insulation inside a car starts with whatever materials are at hand. Cardboard cut to fit doors and windows slows heat loss by trapping pockets of still air. Its thermal conductivity is about 0.07 watts per meter Kelvin, which means it blocks heat far better than bare metal or glass. Some people add a layer of reflective film, such as a windshield sunshade or a mylar emergency blanket. These materials bounce back over 90% of infrared heat, keeping warmth from radiating out through the windows. In practice, a sunshade or mylar sheet can lift the temperature inside by 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit compared to nothing at all. Wool works best for blankets because its thick fibers trap air and stay warm even when damp. A 0-degree sleeping bag rated for deep cold can cut heat loss by 30% or more. Beneath the body, a foam pad is essential. Closed-cell foam has a conductivity of just 0.03 watts per meter Kelvin, blocking the cold that seeps up from the car floor. Even a single pad can make the difference between numb limbs and a few hours of restless sleep. Moisture is another threat. Breath and sweat add nearly a liter of water to the air overnight. Cracking a window 2 or 3 centimeters lets humidity escape, but it also lets heat out. Desiccant packs such as silica gel pull water from the air without dropping the temperature as much, and each 10-gram pack soaks up 2 grams of moisture. Layered clothing, hats, and gloves trap more warmth. Chemical hand warmers powered by iron oxidation release about 30 kilojoules of heat over 6 hours, enough to keep fingers and toes above the frostbite line. Every item serves a purpose, not to make the car comfortable, but to slow the cold, manage wetness, and keep the body's limited heat close. Not all parking spots offer the same chance of making it through a winter night. In every city, temperature maps show pockets where the air stays 2 to 5 degrees warmer, often near downtown, where buildings and pavement hold on to heat even after sunset. These urban heat islands can mean the difference between frost forming on the inside of a windshield and a few extra hours above freezing. But many people end up in the coldest parts of the city, pushed to the edges by parking restrictions, enforcement, or safety fears. In Denver, a municipal official describes the city's pilot program. 3 lots now allow overnight car sleeping, with access to electricity for heaters and regular checks by outreach workers. Most cities, though, offer no such option. Chicago's 24-hour parking bans and Minneapolis's limited permits mean that people must choose between risking a ticket or risking their health. The right parking spot is a survival tool, but policies rarely match the need. For now, most must rely on luck, knowledge of the city's microclimates, and whatever shelter a car and a careful choice of street can provide. The nightly struggle inside a car in winter comes down to a simple equation: the body's limited heat against the relentless pull of the cold. Every layer and barrier slows the loss, but nothing stops it completely. Over days and weeks, this fight wears people down. Sleep is broken and shallow. The immune system weakens. Even small wounds heal slowly. The risk of hypothermia, frostbite, and illness rises each night spent in a vehicle that cannot truly keep the cold out. The science is clear. Insulation works, but only if people have the right materials. A full kit with cardboard, a reflective sunshade, a foam pad, and a warm sleeping bag can keep the interior up to 8 degrees warmer and cut moisture, reducing the risk of deadly cold. Yet most cities do not provide these basics, and safe, legal parking remains rare. Municipalities have the evidence, funding insulation kits, designating monitored warm car zones, and sharing data on need are immediate proven steps. The margin is thin, and action can make survival possible for thousands who have nowhere else to go. Tonight, thousands will rely on science and preparation just to survive inside parked cars. Each year, winter claims lives not for lack of will, but for lack of safe, warm shelter. The line between danger and survival remains razor thin. No one should have to sleep this close to the edge.